First of all, I'm a woman, and that means I'm a human being. That's my first take on this, you know. And as a human being, I have to discover my true nature. I want to understand my nature. And there I have the same ground as a man or any other woman, or as someone from Africa or someone from Germany or whatever. So for me that's very important, that I see where is the same as a woman. Then I see there are differences. You know, when I'm on a path, on a spiritual path, and I want to wake up to my true nature, and I have a partner or a man next to me who wants to do that, there's a reason why we are men and why we are women. And from the Buddhist perspective, or in the Buddhist tradition, you talk a lot about feminine and masculine principle. The feminine principle has a lot to do with space and trusting space. And the masculine principle has a lot to do with action, compassionate action, but action. And I personally found out in the course of my life, I'm doing Buddhist practice now for 30 years, that I have a natural inclination to space, and then that I'm good in inviting space into situations. And my feeling is, this is because I'm a woman. It's easier for me. So, because we need space a lot these days, space is what we are missing in modern society, I think the role of women in Buddhism is very important. You know, we can really bring this, and we can show that there is the possibility of trusting space. That's one aspect. The other aspect is also that, you know, always there have been women who have been playing a big role in Buddhism. Like if you look at the development of the Tibetan Buddhism, you know, in the history, it came from India to Tibet, and then in Tibet they found different ways of doing the methods, but they didn't develop completely new schools in a way. The only person that developed a completely new method and technique is Majik Labdran. She was a woman. She developed what's called the Chut practice, you know, where you work with your own confusion in a very radical way. And she was the only one who developed something completely new, you know. So you see, women had always an important role in a way in the Buddhism, and not only as the consorts of men, but also as actively creating Buddhism and creating ways to enlightenment. And I think, for example, in my home Sangha, I belong to a certain Buddhist tradition, and there we are really trying to empower women now, so that this gets clear, that Buddhism is not something where the men know what to do and the women just have to follow. You see? Yeah. For me, there's a big difference. I think we have two ways when we go on a Buddhist path. One is that we really go in solitude, and that can either be in a monastery, could also be in a cave. I could imagine that someone in these modern days goes somewhere and just works on his or her own. You know, that's one way of applying the insights, the wisdom, of finding the wisdom the Buddha found in your own life. There's another way of working with Buddhism, and that is more secular, and that is that you take the essence of the Buddhist teachings and apply it to your daily life. And then you try to use your daily life to wake up. One of my teachers, Trungpa Rinpoche, I don't know if you know him, he came to the West in the late 60s, and when he came, he had this attempt, or he saw that if he really wants to communicate the Buddhism to Western people, he has to go to the essence and try to help people to find the essence in their own culture, in their own work life, in their own family life, and so on. And I think this is possible because the Buddha found out about the nature of human beings, the nature of our mind. This, first of all, is independent from culture. So the essence, you know, you can apply to every situation. But then you have to find out, as human being, where do I resonate? What's good for me? I think it's perfectly fine if some people say, For me, it's better to go in a monastery, because my mind is in a way that I cannot handle this here. Personally, I'm very fascinated by bringing this into my normal life. You know, I have children, I have work, I have everything, and I want to live Buddhism there. And my experience is it's possible. And it helps also our society, because you bring in principles that are sometimes forgotten, because our society is very dominated by a materialistic view. And I also think that we as Buddhists are not the only one who try to do that, and that there are many other wisdom traditions who do the same, and they are as important as the Buddhists. I completely think that's the case, and I see it on two levels. One is that if you go on a Buddhist path, if you take the Buddhist path as your spiritual path, what you actually do is you train yourself in non-aggression. I think one could really, if you would boil down everything the Buddha said, then it's just, you know, to learn not to be aggressive. So that, if everybody would do that, it would change the world completely. So that's where I really have the trust, and I see it in my own life, that my communication with my parents, my communication with colleagues, with my children, everything is very much changing by me trying to understand deeper and deeper and deeper how is it possible to trust and not to be aggressive. Another thing is that I think there's a paradigm change in the world. You know, we cannot expect from a few beings to change the world anymore. The change in the world has to come from many. It has to come from the base. And Buddhism provides a very good way of changing from the base. So I think it's very actual, it's very modern, it's very much needed in the world, actually. Yeah.